Once upon a time, in a realm where opulence and ostentation reigned supreme, there lived a king whose obsession with sartorial splendor knew no bounds. While his council grappled with matters of state and the welfare of his subjects, this peculiar potentate's mind was consumed by a singular preoccupation, the ceaseless pursuit of raiments resplendent and outfits opulent. His Majesty's wardrobe, a cavernous expanse rivaling the grandeur of entire kingdoms, groaned beneath the weight of countless garments, each more extravagant than the last. From bejewelled cloaks that glittered like constellations in the night sky, to doublets embroidered with threads of pure gold, no expense was spared in satisfying the monarch's insatiable appetite for fashion. Yet, amid this sartorial sumptuousness, a dark undercurrent flowed, one that threatened to unravel the very fabric of his realm. For as the king's coffers drained with each lavish acquisition, his subjects toiled in tattered rags, their plight unheeded by their ruler's myopic gaze. The council's burden and a curious proposition. Fortunately for the kingdom, the king's council, ever vigilant and wise, assumed the mantle of governance, steering the ship of state through turbulent waters while their liege indulged his fanciful whims. Their capable hands ensured that the wheels of government continued to turn, even as the monarch's attention remained fixed upon his ever-expanding wardrobe. It was amidst this delicate balance that fate intervened, ushering in a pair of peculiar visitors who would forever alter the course of the kingdom's history, the weaver's wiles and the king's credulity. One fateful morn, two brothers, cloaked in the guise of renowned weavers, presented themselves at the castle gates, their tongues dripping with honeyed words and grandiose promises. Professing to possess a skill unparalleled in the realm of textile artistry, they regaled the king with tales of a fabric so exquisite, so sublime, that it would render all other garments mere trifles in comparison. "Your Majesty," the elder brother proclaimed, his voice rich with feigned reverence, "we have traversed the farthest reaches of your glorious domain, and the whispers of your unmatched sartorial splendor have reached even our humble ears." The king, ever the vain and credulous soul, basked in the flattery, his chest swelling with pride at the recognition of his fashion prowess. "Truly you honour me with your kind words," he replied, his eyes alight with childlike glee. "Pray, tell me more of this wondrous fabric you speak of." The younger brother, sensing the monarch's susceptibility, wove his own tale with practised ease. "Your Majesty, the cloth we propose to weave for you is no mere fabric, but a living testament to your impeccable taste and discernment. For this raiment, once donned, shall render its wearer invisible to the eyes of the foolish and incompetent." A hush fell over the throne room as courtiers and councilmen alike exchanged furtive glances, their brows furrowed in perplexity. Yet the king's mind was already ensnared by the alluring prospect of an outfit that would simultaneously showcase his grandeur and unmask the ineptitude of those around him. "Enough!" he thundered, his voice echoing through the vaulted chambers. "I must possess this wondrous garment at once. Spare no expense, and let the weaving commence forthwith." And so, with a wave of his bejewelled sceptre, the king decreed that the brothers be granted quarters within the palace, their every need tended to as they set about their purported task. The weaver's charade and the council's conundrum. Within the confines of their hastily appointed workshop, the brothers set to work, their deft hands manipulating the air as if guiding gossamer threads through intricate looms. Yet, in truth, their machinations were naught but an elaborate ruse, a pantomime of industry designed to beguile the gullible monarch. As the days crept by, whispers of the miraculous fabric began to permeate the kingdom, stoked by the weaver's calculated claims and the king's unwavering endorsement. Curiosity soon morphed into a fervent desire to witness the unveiling of this purported masterpiece, for to lay eyes upon it would be to confirm one's intelligence and capability. It was amidst this mounting anticipation that the king, ever the cunning strategist, devised a plan to gauge the competence of his trusted council. One by one, he summoned his advisers to the weaver's workshop, challenging them to assess the progress of the fabled fabric. The first councilman's quandary. The first to be summoned was the eldest and most seasoned of the councilmen, a man whose wisdom had guided the realm through countless trials and tribulations. Yet as he stepped into the workshop and beheld the vacant looms, his heart sank, for he could discern no thread nor fabric, only the weaver's pantomimed exertions. Great heavens! He murmured to himself, his brow furrowed in consternation. Can it be that I, who have served this kingdom with unwavering devotion, am deemed a fool in the eyes of these charlatans? The weavers, ever attuned to the slightest flicker of doubt, pounced upon the councilman's disquiet. "Ah, good sir, we are honoured by your esteemed presence," the elder brother crooned, his voice dripping with practised charm. "Pray step closer and feast your eyes upon the wondrous tapestry we weave." Trapped between the weight of his station and the fear of appearing incompetent, the councilman steeled his resolve and played along with the deception. "Indeed, a true marvel," he proclaimed, his eyes wide with feigned admiration. "The colours, the intricate patterns, never have I borne witness to such artistry." The weavers, emboldened by their success, plied the councilman with probing inquiries, their words skillfully designed to ensnare him further in their web of deceit. And so the councilman wove his own tapestry of lies, praising the non-existent fabric with ever-increasing fervour, lest he be branded a fool. As he departed, the brothers' greedy eyes followed him, their minds already plotting their next move. The second councilman's predicament. Emboldened by the apparent success of their ruse, the weavers eagerly awaited their next visitor, the youngest and most idealistic of the king's advisers. Like his elder counterpart, the young councilman found himself confronted with the disquieting sight of empty looms and the weaver's theatrical exertions. "Oh, woe is me," he lamented, his heart pounding in his chest. "If I confess my inability to perceive this fabled fabric, the king's wrath shall surely befall me." Thus, with trembling lips, the young man began to spin his own yarn of fabrication, heaping praise upon the imaginary garment and marvelling at its purported intricacies. The weaver's growing audacity. As the days wore on, each member of the king's council was summoned to the weaver's lair, and each, in turn, fell victim to the brothers' cunning ploy. With every false accolade uttered, the weavers' confidence swelled, their demands for further resources growing ever bolder. "More gold!" they would cry, their grasping hands outstretched in greed. For a fabric of such unparalleled quality demands only the finest materials. And the king, blinded by his own vanity and the fear of appearing foolish, would acquiesce, pouring his realm's wealth into the insatiable maw of the weaver's deception, the parade of folly unveiling the invisible. At last, the day of reckoning loomed, and the king, his anticipation reaching fever pitch, decreed that a grand parade be held to unveil the miraculous garment to his adoring subjects. As the appointed hour drew near, the weavers redoubled their efforts, their mimed exertions growing ever more frenetic as they pantomimed the final touches upon their non-existent creation. "Behold, your majesty!" the weavers cried in unison, their voices ringing with triumph. "The garment you have so eagerly awaited is at last complete." With a flourish, they presented the king with an empty cloth, their deft hands caressing the air as if draping him in gossamer finery. The monarch, his mind enslaved by the weaver's deception, gasped in delight, marvelling at the invisible raiment that adorned his form. "Exquisite!" he exclaimed, his eyes wide with childlike wonder. "Never have I worn such a sublime creation. Why, the fabric seems to shimmer like moonlight upon a still pond." The weavers, emboldened by the king's rapturous praise, continued their charade, dressing him in imaginary finery, a robe of unseen splendour, a cloak of illusory grandeur, each garment more fantastical than the last. As the appointed hour for the parade drew near, the king's council arrived, their faces etched with trepidation. For none among them could discern the fabled garment, and yet the fear of being branded fools stayed their tongues. "Behold, my loyal subjects," the king thundered, his voice booming through the palace halls. "Gaze upon my new raiment and bear witness to its unparalleled magnificence." A wave of forced adulation rippled through the assembled courtiers, each voice raised in hollow praise, lest they be deemed unworthy in the eyes of their deluded sovereign. The parade and the child's innocent truth. At last, the moment of truth arrived, and the king, resplendent in his imagined finery, emerged into the streets of his fair city, his council trailing in his wake. A great throng had gathered, their eyes alight with anticipation, eager to catch a glimpse of the miraculous garment that had captivated the realm. As the procession wound its way through the bustling thoroughfares, a cacophony of awed murmurs and rapturous gasps filled the air, each subject desperate to outdo the next in their effusive praise for the king's invisible attire. Yet, amidst the din of feigned admiration, a single voice rang out, pure and untainted by the deception that had ensnared the kingdom. "But the king isn't wearing anything at all," cried a young child, her eyes wide with innocent bewilderment. In that fateful moment, a hush fell over the crowd, as if the very fabric of reality had been rent asunder. All eyes turned towards the child, and then back to the king, their gazes finally unshackled from the weaver's thrall. A great tide of laughter rose from the assembled masses, a cathartic release of the tension that had gripped them for so long. The king, his face flushed with shame and humiliation, stood frozen in place, his regal bearing shattered by the weight of his own folly, the reckoning and the brothers' flight. As the mocking laughter echoed through the streets, the king's council finally found their voices, their tongues loosened by the child's candid observation. "Your Majesty," the eldest councilman murmured, his words laced with a mixture of pity and reproach. "We have been deceived. The weavers were naught but charlatans, and their supposed masterpiece a mere illusion." The king, his pride in tatters, could only nod in silent acknowledgement, his eyes downcast and his shoulders slumped in defeat. Yet as the council turned to summon the weavers and mete out justice, they found the brothers' quarters empty, the only traces of their presence being the remnants of the king's depleted treasury. And so, as the sun set over the kingdom, the monarch found himself not only stripped of his imagined finery, but also of the last vestiges of his dignity, a living testament to the perils of vanity and the fragility of human folly. The aftermath and the king's redemption. In the days and weeks that followed, the king retreated into the shadows of his palace, his cheeks burning with the embers of humiliation. Yet, as the sting of his folly slowly subsided, a newfound wisdom began to take root within his heart. He marvelled at the resilience of his subjects, who had weathered the storm of his vain pursuits with an unwavering loyalty, their love for their monarch transcending even his most egregious foibles. Slowly, the king emerged from his self-imposed exile, a transformed man, humbler, wiser, and infinitely more attuned to the needs of his people. Gone were the lavish expenditures on frivolous finery, replaced by a newfound commitment to the betterment of his realm and the welfare of his subjects. As he strode through the bustling streets, clad in simple yet dignified raiments, the people rejoiced, for they had regained not only a king, but a servant leader whose vision extended far beyond the fleeting vanities of the material world. And though the tale of the king's new clothes would forever be etched into the annals of the kingdom's history, it would stand not as a testament to folly, but as a poignant reminder of the redemptive power of wisdom, humility, and the unbreakable bond between a ruler and his people.